There are villains who terrify us because of their power. There are villains who disturb us because of their cruelty. And then there is Johan Liebert, a man who kills with words instead of weapons, who manipulates without raising his voice, who erases identities and shatters lives with quiet precision. He is not just a character in a story, he is a reflection, a mirror, a question that lingers long after the last page of Monster is closed. The villain who doesn't shout. What makes Johan so chilling is his subtlety. Unlike the flamboyant villains of shonen manga, Johan rarely raises his voice. He doesn't rely on violence himself. Instead, he plants ideas in the minds of others. His aura comes from stillness, from his ability to control situations without lifting a finger. This calmness sets him apart. He feels real. We've met people like Johan, not killers, but people whose charm hides something dangerous, people who know exactly how to push others into actions they'd never dream of. The setting of Monster, Naoki Urasawa, sets Johan within the world of post-Cold War Germany, a divided land scarred by ideology and trauma, a backdrop of forgotten orphans, secret experiments, and the lingering weight of fascism. It is in this fractured world that Johan becomes believable. He is not a fantasy villain dropped into a story. He is the product of history, the embodiment of what happens when human beings are treated as tools, when identities are erased, when trauma festers in silence. The origins of Johan? Every monster has an origin. But what makes Johan Liebert different is that his origin is not about power, but about erasure. His childhood was not a story of innocence lost, but of innocence stolen, piece by piece, until nothing remained. To understand Johan, we must step back into the shadows of Kinderheim 511, the forgotten orphanages, and the fragile bond with his twin sister that defined his path into darkness. From the beginning, Johan's life was shaped by forces outside his control. He and Anna were born into a broken world, post-Cold War Europe, with children seen as tools of ideology. Their mother, desperate to protect them, was forced to make choices that scarred both siblings forever. Johan carried within him the seed of trauma, before he even had words to express it. This is a crucial distinction. Johan was not born a monster. He was made into one. His story is a meditation on how external systems, wars, experiments, ideologies can erase humanity and turn people into vessels of despair. The shadow of the mother's choice. One of the most haunting parts of Johan's origin lies in the ambiguity of his mother's decision. Faced with the choice of which child to give up, she may have chosen Johan or Anna. That choice and its reversal implanted in Johan the question that defined his life. Which child was meant to be erased? Which life was disposable? This seed of doubt, planted so early, created Johan's obsession with identity erasure. He was the child who survived, but also the child who was never meant to be. From this paradox comes his fascination with death, his desire to reduce people to nothingness. Kinderheim 511, the factory of monsters. Kinderheim 511 is perhaps the single most important influence on Johan. Ostensibly an orphanage, it was in reality a psychological experiment, a place where children were stripped of individuality and forced into brutal survival games. The children were manipulated into violence, betrayal, and paranoia. The goal was to produce a perfect human weapon, a being devoid of empathy, capable of leadership through terror. In this crucible, Johan thrived not by brute force but by intellect. While other children clawed, fought, and killed each other, Johan manipulated from the shadows. He turned them against each other, orchestrating chaos until only emptiness remained. By the time he left Kinderheim 511, Johan had already proven that the most dangerous weapon was not violence, it was control of the mind. Here, Johan's core philosophy crystallized: humans could be reduced to nothing with a whisper, a suggestion, a nudge into despair. The bond with Anna, Nina Fortner. Despite everything, Johan was not entirely alone. He had Anna, his twin, his mirror, his last tether to humanity. Their bond was both protective and destructive. Anna represented what Johan could never be: innocence, hope, the possibility of healing. Johan in turn represented the weight of trauma and despair. Their relationship reveals Johan's paradox. He needed Anna to anchor him, to remind him of connection. But he also resented her because her very existence highlighted his own brokenness. When Anna eventually turned a gun on Johan in their childhood, shooting him in the head, it symbolized the rupture of that bond and the beginning of Johan's transformation into something beyond salvation. The first killings and early manipulations. Even as a child, Johan displayed the terrifying traits that would define his adulthood. He could charm adults with ease, presenting himself as the perfect child. He could manipulate other children into doing his bidding, often pushing them towards self-destruction. He showed an uncanny ability to disappear into identities, to erase himself while orchestrating chaos around him. These early acts were not about survival alone, they were about testing the boundaries of influence. Johan discovered that power did not lie in violence. It lay in the ability to convince others to destroy themselves. The psychological impact of erasure. The true horror of Johan's childhood is not just the violence he witnessed, but the erasure of identity he endured. He was stripped of name, family, and self. He learned that existence was conditional, fragile, dependent on the whims of others. He internalized the idea that the most terrifying fate was not death, but being forgotten. This obsession with erasure would become Johan's defining trait. His adult life was a series of orchestrated disappearances, massacres where no trace remained, manipulations that left victims questioning whether they had ever truly existed at all. Johan's origins are not the story of a villain's rise, but of a human being's collapse. In Kinderheim 511, he learned that humanity is fragile, that identities can be erased, that life can be reduced to nothing. And in his bond with Anna, he saw the cruelest truth of all, that love and destruction are two sides of the same coin. Johan did not walk away from his childhood as a survivor. He walked away as an echo, a void, a mirror waiting to reflect the darkness of the world. To call Johan Liebert evil is too simple. Evil implies intention, desire, even passion. Johan is something colder, something quieter. He is emptiness given form. His psychology is not about lust for power or wealth. It is about the void, the erasure of identity, and the terrifying fragility of human existence. To understand Johan is to look into that void and see, staring back, the reflection of our own darkest truths. Johan's charisma, the angelic face of the monster. One of Johan's most disturbing qualities is his charisma. His appearance is angelic, golden hair, delicate features, calm voice. People are drawn to him instinctively, trusting him without question. He embodies what psychologists call the halo effect. We assume beauty equals goodness. But Johan weaponizes this. He doesn't demand trust. He earns it effortlessly. He creates the illusion of safety, only to dismantle it at the perfect moment. His calm demeanor makes him more dangerous than any violent outburst could. Johan teaches us a terrifying truth. Sometimes evil wears the most beautiful mask, the manipulator. Johan does not kill with his own hands often. Instead, he manipulates others into destruction. He whispers insecurities into people's ears, amplifying their fears. He exploits trauma, loneliness, and guilt. He frames suicide as liberation, murder as justice, despair as inevitability. In this way, Johan becomes not just a murderer, but a philosopher of death. He convinces others that annihilation is the only truth worth pursuing. This reflects the concept of induced despair, where manipulation pushes people into self-destructive decisions by convincing them they have no other choice. Johan is a master of this psychological warfare. At his core, Johan represents the void. He has no clear identity. He erases himself, adopting names, roles, and disguises. He claims he has no true self, that he is nothingness. His obsession is not with living, but with disappearing, with reducing existence to silence. This philosophy resonates with nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning. But Johan is not simply a nihilist. He weaponizes nihilism against others. He makes people question their own worth, their place in the world. He breaks down their identities until they too long for erasure. Johan is terrifying because he is not just an individual, he is an idea, the perfect suicide. One of Johan's most chilling obsessions is the idea of the perfect suicide. He engineers situations where people destroy themselves in body, spirit, or identity. For Johan, this is the ultimate form of control, making someone choose annihilation. His victims believe they are acting out of free will, when in fact, Johan has orchestrated everything. This obsession reveals his own psychology. Johan longs for annihilation himself, but he externalizes it onto others. By making others disappear, he rehearses his own desired fate. Johan Liebert is not simply a villain. He is emptiness incarnate, a man who reveals the terrifying truth that meaning, identity, and morality are fragile constructs. He manipulates, erases, and destroys not out of rage, but out of a philosophy born from trauma and despair. In Johan, we see the possibility that the darkest monster is not outside us, but within. The quiet voice that whispers that nothing matters and that nothingness is the only peace. What makes a villain unforgettable? Is it power? Is it cruelty? Or is it the ability to linger long after the story ends? Johan Liebert does not conquer kingdoms or destroy worlds. He whispers, manipulates, and vanishes, and yet he stands as one of the greatest villains in manga history. To understand why, we must place him beside the giants of villainy and ask what makes Johan different, what makes him stand out. The quiet villain archetype. Most manga villains are loud, theatrical, and grandiose. They announce their ambitions, they demonstrate their strength, they leave destruction in their wake. Johan is the opposite. He rarely raises his voice. He kills through suggestion, not spectacle. His presence is quiet, but it consumes everything around him. This quietness makes him far more unsettling. While other villains scream for attention, Johan whispers into your ear and you never forget what he says. Psychological depth. Many villains are defined by what they do. Johan is defined by what he makes others do. He doesn't show his full hand. He leaves gaps for the imagination. His philosophy forces readers to confront existential dread. He embodies trauma, nihilism, and the fragility of identity. This psychological depth is rare in manga. Johan functions not just as a character, but as a concept, a manifestation of the void within us. The haunting ambiguity. What makes Johan stand out most is his ambiguity. We never fully know what he wants. We never know if his philosophy is conviction or coping mechanism. He remains both human and inhuman, victim and villain. This ambiguity haunts us because it mirrors reality. Evil is rarely clear-cut. Trauma is never simple. Johan embodies that complexity, refusing to be reduced to a single explanation. Johan Liebert stands out not because he is the loudest, strongest, or most ambitious villain, but because he is the quietest. He whispers truths we do not want to hear, embodies fears we cannot escape, and reflects the void we carry within. Compared to gods and conquerors, Johan is more terrifying because he is human, and because his shadow stretches beyond the page into our own psychology. That is why he endures, and why he stands apart. Every great villain tells us something about ourselves, but Johan Liebert does not just reflect fear, ambition, or cruelty, he reflects the void. He forces us to ask what we are without meaning, without identity, without memory. To look at Johan is to confront the possibility that the monster is not him, it is us, stripped of illusions. Johan as a universal mirror. Johan functions as a mirror for Tenma morality, compassion, the insistence that every life matters, Anna trauma, survival, and the fragile hope of healing. The reader, our own anxieties about existence, erasure, and meaning. In this way, Johan is not just a character in a manga, he is a test. He asks, what do you believe about life, death, and value? Johan's philosophy and the human condition. Johan's obsession with nothingness is not unique to him. It is a human theme that has haunted philosophy for centuries. Existentialists like Camus and Sartre asked, what do we do in the face of a meaningless universe? Johan answers, we erase ourselves, we embrace the void. Tenma answers, we create meaning by valuing life itself. This clash is not just fictional, it is the eternal debate of humanity. Do we surrender to despair, or do we choose to build meaning anyway? Johan embodies surrender, Tenma embodies choice. The reader is left in the middle, forced to decide. Johan Liebert is not the monster hiding under the bed. He is the whisper in the back of your mind. He is the reminder that meaning is fragile, that identity can be erased, that even the most angelic face can hide despair. And yet, in his flaws, in his cracks, in his humanity, Johan also reminds us of something else, that monsters are made, not born. That every choice we make to love, to heal, to value life pushes back against the void. Dr. Tenma chose to save Johan's life. Johan chose to erase it. And we, as readers, are left with the question, which choice will we make? For in the end, Johan's story is not just about him, it is about us. And that is why the monster will never truly disappear. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe.